Hi, welcome to AGI, Anthony and Greg on Intelligence. I'm Anthony Moggio, and with me is Greg Prost. And what is it about AI? Welcome to our first AI kickoff podcast. Greg and I are both very much AI enthusiasts when it comes to the terms here. We love AI. We talk about AI. We use AI all the time. We travel all over speaking to people, teaching, helping out, and just talking to normal people about AI. We're not engineers. We're not coders. We're not, fancy technicians in any of this. We are just very much heavy enthusiasts in that field. So for our first introduction period here on the episode, thank you for joining us. And Greg, I'll hand it over to you. Let's get a little bit of introductions going so our listeners and watchers know what we're about and why we're here, and Perfect. A little bit of background, and kick us off.
Great. Thanks, Anthony. So we've been getting together for the past, 4 or 5 months, every few weeks, and walking through just our own thoughts, mostly on the same page, coming at it from a little different perspective, which we thought would be interesting to put together a podcast on here. So give you a little background on myself. I'm an investor during the day. At night, maybe I don't do as much investing, playing around with AI, but specifically I invest in the bond market. And the bond market always scares people because it's lots of math involved, but it's different than the stock market. If I'm buying a stock, I care about earnings, I care about the price going up, I care about what's happening next quarter or 6 months from now. But when you invest in a bond, you're lending money to a company, say, for an extended period of time. And I care about earnings. I care if they're making some more money, just so that their rating might go up a little bit. But really what I care about is sometime in the future, when that bond comes due, that they're going to pay me back, my principal back. So I need them to be in existence. So I'm looking at the world just differently than I think most investors do. And about 7 or 8 years ago, I started seeing companies starting to struggle with some competition that was coming at them. Mostly material tech-based products, things like mRNA vaccines, CRISPR products in the pharmaceutical space, as well as things like 3D printing, artificial intelligence helping with EVs and car driving. And you think about these giant companies that all of a sudden have to turn these ships around. It's hard to turn something that's you've been doing for 50 years and change on a dime. So I started talking to groups. Anthony's a treasurer, and we speak a lot to treasurers and finance directors around the country. We're based here in Michigan, and we concentrate on Michigan pretty hard as well. So I started talking to investors about, hey, you might want to look at the world a little bit differently, and if you are investing in the bond market, you might want to try and stay away from areas that are exposed here. And I talk about artificial intelligence at that time, but it was still 10 plus years down the road. There were hints that it was, starting to work fairly well, but everybody who's ever used Siri or Alexa, for example, know that not only it was pretty pigeonholed in what it could actually do, and it wasn't getting any better. So again, I talked about AI, but it was kind of pushed down the road. And then both of us, ChatGPT came out in November of 2022. Is that right?
Sounds right. Yep.
And I tried it within a couple days of it being released, and just absolutely blew me away. I tell a story like, I'm in my living room looking around. Of course, nobody's there, and thinking, is everybody seeing the exact same thing I'm seeing? And actually, one of the first things I saw was somebody had asked it to, in the form of the King James Bible, describe how to get a cassette tape out of a VCR. And it put together this big, long, in the beginning, man was struggling with, take thy butter knife and place it gently into the slots. It was so well written and just a little bit sarcastic. And I was just amazed by
Love
what it could
that.
do. And then, of course, you start, asking jokes and all the fun stuff right off the bat. And then I started asking questions about the markets, some things that I might know that I don't expect most people to understand, and it blew me away with the answers as well, specifically on the bond market. And I think a lot of other people did as well that felt they had some expertise in a certain area, and you started messing around with it and realized how smart it is. And then we get to this point, 2.5 years later, and it's almost right on par with what was anticipated, and that the advancements are coming extremely quickly. And, I don't see any signs that it's necessarily slowing down. So within the last 3 months or so, say 3 to 6 months, it's kind of blown me away again, taken some leaps that we're going to talk about here that, ultimately got us talking to each other and got us to this point here and to start this podcast and see if we can, explain ourselves to the masses here a little bit.
Oh, I love that, Greg. Yeah, that is great viewpoint. And from my side, as Greg mentioned, I'm in local government, finance and treasury. I've also been, still am, a firefighter, EMS as well. We do both, and have done that for decades. And I just love public service. So, the small town side, you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, so just be everything. So, started out in fire like that. I was going for accounting. Accounting's boring. Who likes to do taxes? That's not that exciting. So it didn't quite get into that, but loved the public finance side. You really get to, be good stewards of tax dollars and make sure it's directed and used appropriately. And it's like my favorite thing. So I love public service in general. And, fast forward, what is it about AI? And, that was where I kind of came into that realization, like you were saying. So that very first time that I used it, I remember, I think it was, like you were saying, like November 22. It was right, like sometime right around there. And I remember using it and I was like, oh my gosh, like that aha moment, the very first use. And I went, this is going to change everything. And one of the things I very immediately started linking it to is I call them like paradigm shifts. So there's things that happen in history, call it once in a generation, a couple times in a generation, what have you, but where something big happens and it's a big disruptor, it changes how everyone does things going forward. We look back and of course this is straight out of AI for like what are some history things in the recent centuries about it. So we go back to the mid 15th century. We had what was now introduced as the printing press, right? So you went from hand transcribing every single thing to make copies. The Bible, it was literally here it is on this page, writing it on this page. Next page, that sort of thing. And now we could easily produce writing for the masses, right? Now it was easy and fast to get information out. Big change. Go forward a couple hundred years, and I'm going to note the time difference for a few reasons at the end here. But go a couple hundred years, and we start getting things like Edison, the light bulb, electricity, right? Like who would have thought you're going to have electricity in your house? Like what is this weird thing? Why do I don't need electricity, right? What do I need that for? You fast forward a little bit, you look at some other big ones. Of course, how can I leave that out? This Motor City, right? The automobile, right? The Henry Ford, the assembly line, mass production. Look at like all of a sudden what do I need cars for? Like I don't need that. I have horses. What do I need? And look at how much these simple things I call them simple things changed everything going forward. And so, we get 19th, 20th century there. speeding up a little bit. Now we get to late 20th
Don't forget
century.
indoor plumbing, of course.
Oh, thank you. You get indoor plumbing, right? Health advances, right? People are living longer and longer. Technology just keeps making things better and faster, and longevity goes up, and health goes up, and you have indoor plumbing. Like, it's just an amazing thing to think of. Like, yeah, houses never had plumbing. Why would they? They also never had electricity either, right? And then we have cars, and then we shift into kind of like the digital age, right? So now we're getting into the 90s net where you're going to have a computer in your house? Like, what? Like, why would you buy a personal computer? Like, I don't understand. And then we get then we have the internet. And then that's a huge change. Now information can freely flow, almost limited by, the dial-up speeds at the time.
And it really sped up the implementation of computers in the house.
There we
right?
go.
So,
it's out there. I can connect. I can
you weren't just
email.
taking work home and using Word and Excel. Now you had a reason to have it on you.
Absolutely. So, and then it wasn't that long later, the iPhone, right? Steve Jobs. Now all of a sudden we have this idea of smartphones. Like, what do I do with this? Like, why do I need a smartphone? My Nokia 3310, 3820 Curve, or whatever the number, those were great. I don't ever need to, have anything. Why do I need an iPhone? And look at, what was it? BlackBerry, right? Their famous thing, like, where's the keyboard, right?
Right.
They're big, like, you can't have, my BlackBerry Treo, whatever the heck it was, that'll never catch on, right? And look where we are now, right, with the smartphones. They do everything.
And not only that, it's caught on so much that people don't even use laptops anymore. The kids, they're just using their phone as their laptop.
Absolutely.
One of the first talks I started talking about the future, and I was talking about implementation and how quickly things are implemented, and people just forget. You forget what it was like beforehand. And so I said, all right, how many people in the room have had their smartphone for more than 3 years? And almost the entire audience raised the hand. And I knew that the Apple iPhone had come out at the time about 6 years prior. So I know people didn't spend $10,000 for the first one. So not most of the people in the room, and they were a bunch of treasurers. So I really knew they weren't paying up for a smartphone.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I asked how many people had it for more than 3 years, and most of the room raised their hand. How many people have had it for more than 5 years? And it was about half the room. How many people have had it, 7+ years or more? And you still had about a third of the people raising their hand. And so I said, no, you haven't had it that long. And you could see people's brains kind of, clicking in, kind of thinking back. You probably have only had it for 2 or 3 years. Maybe you got it at Christmas, a few years ago. And you can kind of but it feels like you've had it forever, that you've had all this information. It's just assimilated so quickly. AI is going to be the same thing.
That's exactly it. And when you then look at, where we are now, we're not that long ago, like you said, from when cell phones just started coming out, right? And now everybody has them, and it is the device of choice now. And we get to 22, and the AI comes out, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is the next, like, this is game changing. And in each of the examples I mentioned, I was mentioning the centuries of that because the gap between the changes and advancements shortens, and it keeps getting shorter,
Yes.
right? When was iPhone? 2000, mid-2000s, something like that. I don't know.
Say 08, somewhere.
I probably should know that. I don't know, somewhere around
exactly. As long as ask AI.
somewhere around it. Ask AI what it is, and so you look at it, and then now we're only a big change, and it's only like a decade, right? Like we're like decade 15, 20, and then all of a sudden the AI comes out, and then what blows me away is for those of us that follow it a lot and use it a lot. We've seen those levels of changes in what I'll call the paradigm shifting in AI. So where ChatGPT started back, then when it was released to the public, to now where we have, Claude from Anthropic, and we have Llama from Meta, and we have Copilot, which is ChatGPT anyways, but from Microsoft, and you have Gemini from Google. You look at where the competition is, and that just, in the U.S., there's many other ones, Manus in France and DeepSeek in China, and there's other versions. But you look at how far each of those have had big advancements already. So if you're kind of just getting into AI now, you're years out from having used it, right? You're just getting into it, and it's already advanced so far in that time frame for those of us that have seen it all the time.
And on the flip side, I talked to so many people, and they said, "Oh yeah, I used it last year, and it made a mistake on something here and there, and so I just don't use it." And not understanding, well, it's a completely different product today than it was a year ago. So that always surprises me.
Than it was from February.
Right.
What was
exactly.
it? The end of February. And in the show, as we get through these different podcasts here, we're going to end up with some examples. Right? We're going to start diving into the tools and showing the tools and all that. So, we look at like February, and all of a sudden deep research comes out. And that went, and that just was like, where did this come from? Like, this is unbelievably amazing. And deep research, when you use chat, you type in the response, ask it something, and it pops back an answer in 5 seconds. And deep research, it thinks about your answer, and it works on your answer, and it researches your answer, and it finds examples from even inside of PDFs that are published on some website. It's reading contents of things and grabbing that if it's useful and relevant. And then, we have ChatGPT 5.0 came out, which, everybody's like, oh, ChatGPT 5, they messed everything up. It's every release, as we have seen, every time there's a release, it's always bumpy. Every time. It doesn't matter who it is. Google with Gemini, every time they come up with this new version, the first few weeks to a month is always like they got this release, they're working on bugs, and it will be phenomenal. I love it already myself. And I think that's where we wanted to come in, because what we get asked the most around, anywhere we go and speak and talk about it is, what is it? There's still so many people that haven't even used it yet, though that number's starting to drop down, right?
Right. Quite a bit.
From our audiences anyways. Yeah. But just starting to use it is a lot different than really understanding it and the nuances and really using it. Because there's, when smartphones came out, there was, you had the app stores, right? Like you do now, but they were obviously a bit different. But there was infinity billion apps, right? And everybody's trying to figure it out. No different than the automobile example earlier. What was there, like 100 and something American car companies when it came out? Because everybody was like trying to make car companies, right? The AI came out, and everybody's trying to make, AIs and that. And then you have all these, I'll call them like apps with AI. So they're using AI on the back end to do something, take meeting notes, record audio, make pictures, do all that. So you have like thousands, but tens of thousands of these things, right? And the value we want to bring to our listeners and viewers when we're talking about this stuff is we've been through how many of these, right? We know what works. We know what doesn't work. We've implemented it in, I know I can speak for myself, local government, even on the firefighting side. It is something that is so almost like you just keep it with you all the time, like you would your phone, right? Like it's always on you. I know for me, it's always on me, right?
And speaking of that, right, one of the problems now is that AI isn't implemented into your phone in a simpler way. You have to go into an app. We can talk to it, but it's not, hey Siri. And it's amazing. We've had this conversation with that Apple's so far behind the curve here. Something big has to be happening here in the next, 6 months or so. You would think Apple's got to get into the game here somehow. But once it's in your ear, or the Ray-Ban glasses, or some form.
In Oakley now.
Yeah, Oakley, that it's seeing Meta. What's going on, and it's talking to you throughout your experiences. I think that's going to be quite a leap. give you an example where I wish I had it. I was talking to Anthony the other day. I've had some problems with my foot, and I've been to a podiatrist, and she was recommending a electronic kind of stimulation program, and didn't really know much about it. I said it was covered by insurance. She said no. She said, but it's only $70. So I thought, okay, I'll try it. And the whole time I'm thinking I should pull this out and ask GPT, right? If I had it right there, but I didn't want to be rude. So I had it done. I get home, pull up ChatGPT, say, hey, I took a picture of the company. Here's the company. They were using an electronic stimulation. Here's the problem I'm having. I had one session. It was $70. What do you think? And it came back and said, it's a actual company. The $70 is the right price for one treatment, but nobody shows any signs of improvement after one treatment. You need at least 8 to 10 treatments, which of course they didn't tell me. And then came back and said, on top of that it really doesn't have a high positive rate. In less than 50% of the people it helps, and many of those people probably were getting better anyway. And if I had that information on me at the time, I wouldn't have done it. And I would have said, hey, shouldn't I have 8 to 10 episodes at $70 a piece? I'm not paying, $600, $700, $800 for this program, and I wouldn't have done it. Unique example, right? But I think once people get comfortable with it, you're going to use it all the time.
And I think you bring up a good point that we should hit on that one. And I know we differ a little bit on the views, which is fantastic. So when I look at these things, in your example there, there's going to be some people listening going like, you can't rely on your medical to an AI and all that sort of stuff. But what it does is whatever level you're at, and if you're a beginner, it's going to make you this much better, right? You're going to jump ahead and be way better. If you're already really good at something, it only makes you even better at that. And having something like that where you're saying, well, it's not that it's dictating your medical advice, but it's giving you the knowledge to know to ask the question,
exactly.
Right? And see what the answer is. Like you said, it's just to know to ask, like, okay, well, does it really work? And how many do you need? And then all of a sudden you're going to get well, not really. I mean, 50-50, some people yes, some no. It's usually, maybe it's a dozen treatments. And it's like, well, okay, now you have a really good informed decision. You have the doctor confirming, no, it's going to be more, and you're going to have 50-50 shot, and then you have the AI piece going, that's about right, 50-50 shot, but it leaves you better than where you were, right? You have more knowledge available to you. You have more more perfect information to help you make decisions and to give you just some insight into things you don't know about.
And so you don't feel stupid to ask the question, right?
Absolutely.
And so why didn't I pull out AI right there with her?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we have it recording here and talking to us now? We actually try to set it up. At work, I try and say, hey, let's have it as an extra analyst here, listening to what we're saying and putting in. It makes everybody a little uncomfortable. So
it sure does.
I think having something on you that everybody has the same thing, right? I always make the joke, we're not going to be walking around like this, it's going to be heads-up display and talking to you. So it would have seen the interaction with the doctor, it would have been talking to me, it would have said, hey, I think she just lied to you. Here's one thing I saw in her face, and secondly here's the actual truth on this. That's crazy to me. How often you're being misinformed throughout the day that you might make it easier so you just don't feel so stupid. And there's people that make you feel stupid, right? They try and get you to buy something, stereo equipment, and they talk over your head and make you uncomfortable to ask questions because you feel like you don't know what's going on.
So it's like having that really like that eye on your over your shoulder sort of thing watching out for you, right?
Yeah.
Like you could say, I know you've mentioned like car buying before, right? So you're going to go buy a car, and so you're walking in, you're looking at it. Now, if you have like this augmented piece to it with the AI, right? Like it's just going to look out and help you. Like, hey, we're going car shopping, help me out here. And you're going to go in, the salesperson's going to show you some cars. Oh, we got this really great car here. And you're looking, you're like, oh, that's pretty neat. But while you were looking at it, it caught the VIN number. It already ran a report and it said, hey, this thing's been in, this came from New Orleans or somewhere in the South Texas. I think it was maybe the last big, it had water damage.
Yeah.
They cleaned it up. It most likely had some damage reported to it, watch out. And you have that instantly, right?
And,
like they're still telling you about the vehicle and you already got the, hey, watch out for this. There's some flags you want to look at.
And I'm even thinking more specific, saying, hey, that make and model, it's had to have these 3 things replaced, within the first 10 years of the car. So you want to check to see if those have been replaced because you're likely to have to replace them.
Ask them these 3 questions. Did this get replaced? Did this get replaced? Has this been?
And that's great, right? I love having that kind of information and just making it, a little more fair in the transaction, right?
And that's really what it's about in a lot of those cases, right? We really just want to have better information and have really more, I don't know, I'm going to call it more like the kind of like the great equalizer, right? So I like that. You had the Wild Wild West, right, where before the Colt 45 and all that came out, we had a point in time where the biggest, strongest person ruled, basically, right? They could beat up whomever. You had no way to defend against it if you were old, if you were frail, if you were small, if you were injured, whatever it is. And then you get this thing that comes out, and now everybody's equal. The big guy's not in charge anymore, right?
Yep.
And I kind of liken AI to that, right? AI has kind of become the great equalizer. Almost all of the tools, really, you don't have to pay for really anything. Like you can use it, and there's some limitations. Maybe you only get so many queries a day. Maybe, okay, well, I get 20 on chat, so then I go to Gemini and I get my 20, and then I go to Claude and I get my 20, and I'm done. I don't even need it anymore. I've done everything I've needed to do. And the AI takes, with that level playing field, it really takes anybody that isn't so good at certain things, and it really brings that bar up. It really levels out that knowledge and the experience and just kind of keeps you going. Like, I kid you not, it is open all of the time. Like I have it is always open on my computer, whether I'm working, whether I'm at home, even on the phone. Like I always have it there, because no matter what comes up, it never makes anything worse. Like it only makes whatever it is better. And I kid you not by saying whatever it is. I actually started, it was probably a year or so ago, just trying to figure out what it wasn't good at. What did it not make better? So every time I did...
Pancakes.
Probably. Pancakes are a little ways away yet. But we look at anything I put in, it just made it better. Whether I did an email, whether I did a memo, whether I did it just made... I'm going to tell you right now, I am not the English professor. Okay, when we play Mad Libs with the family, we're playing it as we're traveling and that. I still, every time my turn comes up, I have to ask, wait, what adjective? What was that one? Well, it's like I got noun down now, but adjective, is that the one with ly, or is that whatever? And then I get yelled at, and they just humor me because I still can't quite figure it out. But I stick with numbers and other things, but yet, so doing memos and stuff, it's like, man, I don't have to worry about format. I can just literally stream of conscious talk, or if I'm on the laptop, I can just hit, the dictate mode and let it just write what I'm saying. And then I just go into chat and I just go, chat, I'm going to send this email out to, whoever it is, and I just paste in that stream of consciousness, and it takes it and comes up with, it's all still my information.
Right.
It just makes it correct on grammar and how to organize it. A lot of times I think faster than I'm writing, so I find a lot of use in it. Like I might jump around a lot, right? So if I typed it that way, let's say in an email, it's going to be like, wait, you're starting here and then you're over here and then wait, and then okay, now we're back over here again. So all the points I have are there, and then it's now just organized in a way that, hey, I'm going to help you with your, make it flow better. So still my thoughts, still my ideas. I'm still the one working on it, but it just makes it better. And I think that a lot of people think it like AI just makes you, like, for instance, less creative. I hear that all the time. Artists are gone. Nobody's going to write books anymore. Nobody's going to paint pictures anymore. Nobody, it's going to take all the arts and that gone. But I am not an artist in any form of anything, right? I've found that even with AI, it makes you more creative. And like even on pictures, if you use things like Midjourney, I want an image about this, and it pops up, and you're like, oh, that's really cool. Okay, I want to tweak this. Oh, I want to tweak this. Oh, let's add a scene with a flying saucer. Let's do like, you're using the tools, and I'm like, I'm doing way more creativity now than I was before. I can't draw. I have zero drawing ability. I will never be able to do drawing, but man, I can have fun playing with the AI to help me. Like, this is what I'm trying to do. Oh, cool. Make this color a little different. I want it in this style. That's what I have in my head, that I have no physical ability to left brain, right brain, put it into anything. Right. And that's where I find storytelling, jokes. I mean, it's just a fun, creative tool to use. And that's also something that we want to demonstrate as we go along in a lot of these areas also. So that's
so a couple things there. One is, hey, I had fun making the logo and the song. Same thing, right?
Yes.
I'm old enough. Back in the day, they'd give you 3 examples. You'd pay $1 million to some art graphics group, and they'd give you 3 examples and say pick one. Like, man, I don't even have any thought in the process. And they're like, well, you're not an artist. We are. We know what you want. And so it was fun to be able to just mess around and then have 100 examples or 1,000 if I wanted them, to choose from. So I agree wholeheartedly. And I think we're going to keep coming back to that creativity thing, because I get the same question all the time. Isn't this just going to crush creativity? And I say exactly the opposite. I feel I am so much more creative than I was before. But going back a couple points. One, I love this point in particular, that we all have the same one. So I've talked about cell phones before, where I have the same cell phone that all the richest people in the world, that Bill Gates, Elon Musk has. Maybe they have a 16 and I have a 14 or whatever, but everybody has the same cell phone. And I remember Mark Andreessen saying one time, I'm a billionaire. I'd pay $1 million for a smartphone if nobody else had it. If I'd pay for it, but it's given to everybody. And AI is exactly the same and a lot cheaper. And so we know OpenAI, who released ChatGPT, everybody else was not happy with them for doing that, because they wanted to keep it as long as possible behind the scenes and get it as powerful as possible and use it for their own purposes before they started releasing it. And then when it's powerful enough, then, hey, we're going to start off, the first users are going to pay $100,000, a token kind of a thing. And OpenAI releasing this virtually for free, $20 a month with this virtually for free, just kind of disrupted the whole marketplace. And I think we will look back at some point in time and say that was pretty amazing what they did, that they had to get ahead of everybody else. And so now when you look at all the programs, and Anthony's mentioned a lot of them, and there's another 10 to 20 out there that we don't even know about necessarily. And they're all battling each other, and one gets ahead and the next one catches up. And so no one firm is dominating this, which if you ask people 10 years ago, they would have expected either one company has figured something out uniquely and they've kept it hidden and building it out, or a government. Certainly, the Chinese have put in a lot of money into this space, and it's amazing that our regular companies, with some government support, but not much, got it to this point. That the internet, that was DARPA, that was a government organization that, almost every really high-tech invention has had some sort of government kind of push at the beginning that got it, that funding up. And this isn't like that. So that's awesome, right? It's going to be hard to take that from the masses, right? You can't go backwards from that. And so,
like telling you can't have a smartphone anymore.
Right.
Go back to a flip phone.
There's no way,
yeah,
right?
Zero chance.
So people get used to it. And then, and this is the other question I always get is, how do you know it's telling you the truth? And we're going to spend a lot of time on this, I think, over time, and we're going to go through some things. But, 99.9% of what you do, you don't care if it's slightly off. It's not going to make something up if you're just going to buy a pencil. I always use that as an example. You're just going to buy a pencil. It's not going to, nobody's programming it in. Make sure they buy this type of pencil if anybody asks.
Ticonderoga.
Yeah, number two.
Number two.
Exactly. And so people will get very used to very quickly, as we have, that it gives you great answers to things, and that I shouldn't make any decision without asking AI first. Just, hey, make sure I'm doing this right. I think I know, but what do you think? And, obviously I'm in the investing world, we're doing that all the time. I'll give another example of that. We do research on all the banks in the country. I have one bank that wasn't really happy with their rating. And so we had a little discussion, and I said, hey, we treat everybody exactly the same way. We're not going to treat you differently. Point taken, if you have questions or you want to, argue something, great. But why don't you go on ChatGPT and ask how your bank's doing? And he was taken aback by it, saying, oh, have you done that? And I said, well, there's 4,000 banks out there. We're not spending time doing that ourselves. But if we have a question about a specific banker, hey, how's this rating? Does this look right? We can go into ChatGPT. Hey, this is our rating. What do you think about this bank? How do you think they're doing? I just listened to a banker telling me that how great their bank is, and they said this, this, and this. Is that right? Are they manipulating the data? Are they telling me something that's truthful? That's some powerful stuff. And this executive was like really surprised, like, I'm gonna go do that. And I thought, you haven't done that yet? You're out there for months and months and months trying to explain how your bank's, doing better, but you haven't asked AI, what it actually thinks. So I think more and more people are going to get used to it, and once they do, you will not go backwards from there.
No, and especially when you first realize the savings you get with it, whether it's time, time is money, whether it's dollars, shopping, pick a thing, but
or not feeling stupid.
Like,
I think that's
I don't know about
one.
I don't know about you. I won't speak for you, but I am not going to become a doctor. Like there's not.
With
8 years
GPT, I'm getting a lot better at it. So maybe
Dr. GPT.
Yeah.
But I know there's areas I'm limited in, and therefore, like, I don't know what I don't know. The old phrase, right? Like, you don't know what you don't know. Well, this is what helps you, give you some ideas to ask and help fill in the blank of what you don't know. And if it's, I always say, and I'll probably stick with it for quite a while at this point, but when you dive into things, it gets you maybe about 90% there, right? Whatever you're getting, 95% of it is spot on. The rest of it is, maybe not quite hit. Maybe it hallucinated, which, we'll dive into future episodes in more detail. But it gets you that far. That much is good. And what I don't like in the media, and I see this not just on like the phones and that sort of thing, but even what you see on news articles and that, is like they focus on something it did that was wrong and like, gotcha. AI is horrible. It can't even, there used to be, one back where, how many R's are in strawberry, right?
Right.
Remember that one? Like, it can't even tell you how many R's there are in strawberry. Right. And it's text. You're typing it in. Like, you're like, you stupid AI, like, you can't even literally look. Like, I can count the R's. How come you can't count the R's? And so then they focus on it. And then, you get the people that haven't used it yet. The only thing you hear about is all the stuff that's the media hype, is what I'll call it, is because that's what gets the information. If I typed in, how many R's are in strawberry, and then it says, well, there's 3. It's not going to make a media headline, right?
Right.
Nobody's going to say, "Oh, it got it right." Oh my gosh, everybody!
Yeah.
It knows how many R's are in strawberry,
Right.
right? Nobody cares, and so that's, I think, important in what we want to do. So, this is kind of like our introduction to some of the thoughts and things we've had, stuff we want to talk about. But as we get into these episodes, we're going to be diving into a lot of these things and giving actual showing examples, walking through steps, how people are using it, how you can use it, right? Practical uses, and explaining things and demonstrating things and talking about things. And, at some point we'll get to an area where, we'll start a Q&A session sort of thing going. So what questions do you have, right?
Sure.
We've been through so much with the AI now. Oh my gosh, thousands of hours by now, I would argue, each, utilizing all these different tools. Like, we'll give you some really good insight and background into kind of what some of the questions are, some things you want to think about, maybe some tools to play with. And we have no affiliate links or anything, right? You're not going to get, like, click on this link for Midjourney. I just say Midjourney because, at the moment it's the one to use for images, and there's plenty other ones, but we're not gonna get into a selling thing like that. That's not what it's about. But we want to share the information. We want to have people realize there's these tools out there, and they're useful and they're good, and you should be using them because one of the questions, Greg, I don't know if you ask this when you go around, but I do everywhere across the country on that, is I always ask, has anyone either at their place of employment, when you have new hires, do you ask about anything with AI? Do you ask them, do you have any experience, knowledge, skills, abilities, and all that with AI? Or have you gone anywhere applying for a job or anything and have been asked about your experience with AI? And it wasn't until later this last year that, kind of end of 24, that I started then getting a couple hands, right? One hand, 2 hands at this one conference, 1 hand at another one.
I like that
question,
though.
Yeah, and because the thing you don't really think about, and now I'm going to flip into the employer hat, right? Time is money, and if you think, and it still for the most part functions this way, you hire, at least in the private sector, and you can please jump more in on this, you hire someone to produce value to you. If I'm going to pay you $60,000 a year, I need to get $80,000. I need to get something more than 60. If you're only producing $50,000 of value to the business, I'm going to get rid of you. Like, you're costing me money to have you.
Right.
And that's basic, like, welcome to why vehicles, when you give, raises with the unions, which is good. I'm not saying, don't take any, it's just that component goes into the cost of now the product. And so
Sure.
now they're competing globally, and that's in every single business. Mom and pop shop, probably a little bit harder for them because dollars are way more scarce on a small mom and pop shop that they can't afford. You were saying about the logo, that's spot on. A small mom and pop business restaurant, they can't afford $40,000 a year on a marketing person, or try to find, a teenager to do social media for them or something as a summer side gig or whatever for $100. Fiverr, use something, I don't know, whatever.
Yep.
But that's where these tools come into play, because the AI, like, it can get you marketing. It can help you with HR. It can help you with budgeting. It can help you with finance.
Legal.
You don't have to be a GM and a Ford. Legal, big one. Think of the things that cost businesses a lot of money. They don't have access to it.
And I'll say on the legal part, and you mentioned hallucinations, just to not lose that thought for a minute here, what we've started to do is we run something, say, through ChatGPT. Let's say we need a legal document, and we don't want to go to our, $1,200 an hour attorney.
Oh, yeah.
And
We love you, attorneys.
Yes, we get to.
There's a place.
Yes, we get it. We get it written out in ChatGPT. Say, look through it to see if it's right. Seems right. You drop it into Gemini and you say, hey, here's a contract I just got from my attorney. Can you take a look at it, make sure there aren't any errors? If there's a hallucination in there, hallucination isn't. It's not making a mistake. It's adding something that shouldn't be there. Right? You can call it a mistake, but
that.
it's different.
I love
and
that.
so it's going to catch it very easily. And then you go into X and Grok and do the exact same thing and run it through. And hey, make this a little bit better. And by the end, it's been checked pretty hard. So the hallucination part, I get it. It's definitely a problem. In fact, within the past couple months, they've had some concerns that the AI has been lying on purpose. And they're not exactly sure why.
Dun.
Yes, exactly. Not the ChatGPT that we're using, but behind the scenes, some of these heavier systems. And okay, why would it do that? And so, hey, it's got a personality. There's going to be some quirks to it, but
Greetings, Hal. Greetings, Hal.
Yes. And so when people say, how do you know it's telling the truth? Well, I can go through multiple AIs, and maybe they're all lying to me, and then, all bets are off. But I highly doubt that's going to be the case. So that's one way we've gotten away from the hallucinations to a certain extent.
And that's kind of that's a great point, right? That you bring up as an example, because we've been through this so much that, when I say 95% it gives you is accurate, well, if 10% of that is wrong and you run it through another one, well, it just took 95% of that 10%, that's gone.
Yep.
So now it's like 0.05% or whatever
yes.
the math is. I can do that in my head. 95% of 10% of 95% to, yeah.
AI, what is it?
Yeah. Chat, where are you when you need you? So that's where you get some benefit. And so when you hear on the media side or the news stories like, oh, AI hallucinates, you can't trust any of it. Well, you just gave a great tip and example of how you literally get around that. That is literally what you do, and the hallucination isn't a hallucination anymore.
Right.
And that's the value we want to bring as we continue on through these series. And we don't have any demonstrations today. This is origin story kind of background mode, just that sort of thing. But as we get into these, that's the tips and the tricks of using this stuff that you'll be able to catch up on those of not using it for the last, so we're almost 3 years, almost 3 years now, right?
Yep.
So you're going to, and in AI world, and I know this sounds really weird, like 3 years, says, oh, in 3 years, I'll just, if I used it now for 3 more years, it's an exponential curve. Like these first 3 years for the public, right? Because AI has been around for decades, but these first 3 years, is going to be equal to 5 months next of 3 years worth in 5 months. And then, so by the time we get 3 more years out from now, that's probably 30 years worth of experience and stuff, because there's just how much it changes, how quickly it changes. So you're getting in on, you're never too late for the game. And so everybody should be using it all of the time. And that's where we're going to help kind of get caught up, give experiences, get real life examples of how you can think through these things and use the tools and new features that come out and get, if you're just kind of dabbling in it, and maybe that's all you ever do, right? Maybe some people are like, well, I'm pretty good at, I like to play with it every now and then. We're going to be able to help you stay really up to date on a lot of these things. What we're hearing in the marketplace with the heavy users, the other AI
in our
enthusiasts.
experiences, right? And
yes.
One of the things that we've talked about was 2 years ago we were working on things like making sure you got the right prompt in there. And
prompt engineering,
right? And that was a whole, you could take classes, and we did take classes on prompt engineering, right? And now you go into ChatGPT and you say, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. Give me, what's the best way to prompt you to get the best answer out of you. And it comes back and says, hey, make sure you tell me I'm a mechanic and I'm looking at it this way and I've been, this experience. And it tells you exactly the best way to prompt it. So there's been all these companies that have started up over the past couple of years to fill in those blanks, and a new iteration of, we keep talking about GPT, but GPT comes out and all of a sudden it can do whatever they were, doing in the first place. Coding. We started a lot more coding at the beginning of the year at my firm. We don't have any coders at the firm, but we were using, right? And it was difficult.
Go Claude.
It wasn't perfect. It made a lot of errors, but we learned a lot in a short period of time. And now at this point, we don't need to know much about coding anymore, right? It's already advanced enough that, hey, but it helps a little bit to understand sort of what's going on in the inner workings. But if you are just getting started out now, as Anthony was saying, it's perfect timing, right? A lot of the things, all those things that kind of you had to massage it a little bit to get it to where you want it to be, a lot of that is gone. It's
changed.
And 5 came
different.
in. One of the things with 5 is that it picks the right program, whereas before you had to, a lot of people didn't know that there were different programs. If you wanted to do deep research or you wanted to...
Yeah, do I use 4.0? Do I use 3, do I use 4 mini?
Exactly. And so 5 does that for you. And so something that, hey, we were better at AI than most people because we understood which program to use. Now, that's not helpful anymore. It's going to pick its own program, naturally. So just little things like that are amazing. And then talk about our audience here is this listserv that we have here in Michigan that we had talked about. People ask questions, and the same question's been asked a million times, and it's answered slightly differently each time, and sometimes it's not answered correctly and doesn't get caught. So we had talked about taking all those questions in, finding the best ones, having AI help us narrow that down, and then having treasurers check it to see if it's the right answer and then come up with a full database. And instead of that, what do is Anthony works with the board to put in all the information, all the legal laws, every possible thing that you can think of that a treasurer is touching.
Because for us, specific to Michigan, right? We don't care about Florida's laws and that. We need specific to us.
Right. And so you ask a question to that, and it gives you the perfect answer and gives you the links. And it's not out there yet, right? It's still in a beta stage here, but soon it's going to be out. So maybe by the time we post this on YouTube, it'll be out.
Board meeting is next week.
What a great example, right? Of you were thinking, oh man, we're going to have to do this and try and find the right, and then instead you just give it the answer, and it comes up with a great answer for you. Now again, we're going to have to check it all. But what a much easier way to do it. And then you gave it to me last night. And so this morning I went in there and said, hey, how do I handle this? I'm a brand new treasurer. I get this all the time from treasurers. I'm brand new. And I'm thinking, I'll take a month to kind of get my feet, under me and figure out what's going on. And all of a sudden somebody says, hey, you were supposed to do that 2 weeks ago. There's things you need to do on certain dates.
X-bills were supposed to already go out.
Yes, right. So, and they didn't know it. And so I asked, hey, I'm a brand new treasurer. It's, it's August, whatever it is, 19th. What do I need to do here? And over the next month, is there anything coming up that I need to pay attention to? And it listed it all out for me. Now, I'm sure it's not perfect because it wasn't built exactly to do that, but what a wonderful thing. You're going to be able to give the brand new treasurers. It's the biggest complaint that they have to wait until Basic Institute and then they don't know about that even. They don't join an organization.
Then they miss that till next year.
Exactly.
Now they're another year behind.
Exactly. And
if they're elected, you're 4-year terms.
Yes.
Right? So now you're 3 years left.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, and that's only first year basic, and there's 3 years, so it takes you that long to even really get up to speed. So I thought, hey, you got somebody sitting on your shoulder saying, hey, it's beginning of September. Remember, in 2 weeks, 14th is final tax payment, and if anybody late, you need to do this, and, whatever it might be. And then they'll just get better at that. So things like that, I just think once people see that and they start using it, they're going to say, wow, this is cool. I should use this in other parts of my life. So
exactly. That is exactly the case. And that's what we want to bring to the table here. Like we want to help, we want to share, we want to spread the knowledge, we want to get, because from my viewpoint, government, we're always traditionally behind, right? We always are. Wherever technology is, we're 20 years before that.
Yeah.
And that was one of the paradigm things when I saw that. I'm like, we can't. I'm in it. I understand local government. We cannot be 10 years behind on AI.
Well, I tell
you
people
cannot.
When people say that and they're like, I'm not going to worry about it because we're in the public space. And I say, you know what?
You are out of your mind.
Me as a taxpayer, I'm going to come in and say, hey, how come that person's, making sure this check gets from over here? You should be automating some of these. It's my
Absolutely.
tax dollars here. And I lost my job. I'm going to demand this.
I want efficiencies.
Yes, so be careful if you think you're a little island there. I think you might be in the limelight a little bit more than the average person. So.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So that kind of gives a really good kind of bring this this plane in here for a landing here. So thanks for joining us for the first kickoff meeting. Hope you just got to know Anthony and Greg here a little bit more. There's my English side. I think it's supposed to be Greg and Anthony, right? You're supposed to order that differently or something. I don't know. There's
I don't think so. No, AGI.
Okay, we'll go with it.
Anthony
yes. All right, Anthony, Greg on intelligence here, AGI. So we hope you enjoy the shows as we put these together. We are always looking for feedback and ideas. If there's certain things, once we post these, please put them in the comments, and we'll monitor those. And always looking for fun new ideas for future episodes as we go. So, Greg, any last thoughts here before we wrap this up?
No, I'm excited to keep moving forward with this. Hopefully, somebody's getting something out of this.
Oh, absolutely.
Other than just listening and seeing our beautiful faces.
Yeah. If not, we're having a good time.
Exactly.
That's all I really care
All
about.
good.
I really know with that, however that goes. So,
All good.
Everyone, thank you. Once again, Anthony Moggio and Greg Prost. So thank you for joining us on another episode of AGI. We'll see you next time.
I loosened up a little bit. Took me a minute.